Welcome to Desert Wanderers, produced by Salt and Light Radio. If you're new here, we bridge the gap between you and the person in the pew next to you. I will be interviewing priests, religious, and laity in our local Boise diocese, asking questions that'll help you navigate your vocation and help build community wherever you are with whatever resources you may have. Let's build the city of God together. Welcome, Eddie and Cynthia. I'm so glad to have you in the studio today. How are you guys?
We're doing great. I'm doing great.
You're speaking for me?
I know. Sorry.
I'm doing great. Yeah.
Fantastic. I'm so excited. This is a topic that's near and dear to my family and my heart. We are going to be discussing Catholic Charities of Idaho today. We're also going to be talking more specifically of all the services that you guys provide on immigration. So I'm really excited to have some expertise in the office and to have you guys share a little bit more about what you guys do at Catholic Charities. So I think just to start, I would ask, what is Catholic Charities? So if this is someone's first time listening, what is Catholic Charities? What services do you offer? And then what is your positions at the company?
Great. Yeah. So thank you for having us, first of all. So Catholic Charities of Idaho is the social service arm of the Diocese of Boise. So every diocese in America has a Catholic Charities affiliated with them. These are independent social service operations, and there are 168 of us that do work according to the needs of that community, and that's the beauty of it. It's not as if the umbrella CCUSA dictates where we should be and how we should operate. They're there as a resource for us, an educational resource, but then each community is able to partner with the diocese and figure out what's the best use of our resources. What does the community need at any given time? So I'm the executive director.
And I am Cynthia M, the immigration program manager and DOJ, so Department of Justice accredited rep.
Awesome. So can you guys tell me a little bit about how your vocations, like your greater scheme vocations, have brought you to this work?
You want to go first, Cynthia?
Yeah. So for me, my faith has always been centered on being able to help your neighbor. Funny story, growing up, my parents really made me be that helpful person. So I always had to be the leader. As the oldest daughter, I had to help them translate and immerse themselves in their community, right, as immigrants to this new world. So I've always thrived off of that. And then I've always been able to give back in that sense. And so because I knew how to speak English and I understood English, my parents would always put me to do things, and which would then ultimately result in, my friend needs this. How can my daughter can help. She understands. So now I am continuing to give back to my community by doing the immigration work that I am doing. And it's, for me, it's beautiful to see individuals sitting in my office that I'm, doing consultations with and being able to think of my parents and think of wow, I'm still helping my parents. I'm still helping, but I'm helping my community now navigate immigration law and how complex it can be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and for me, it's kind of funny. So I worked for Augustine Institute for 3 years, and it was a remote job, and they were based in Greenwood Village, Colorado, and they decided that they were going to move out to St. Louis area. This was last summer, and they asked that all the remote employees join them and move out there. And my wife and I discerned it wasn't right. And so the first job that popped up on my radar was this diocesan role for Catholic Charities of Idaho. So I applied and landed there. And it wasn't until I started that I realized how significant it was, because for those years with Augustine Institute, it was all digital. I was doing the Amen app. And then even when I was working with a marketing team, it was all just virtual Zoom meetings, never shaking hands with real people. It was years of that. And then all of a sudden I land here and I get to meet people, get to understand what's happening on the ground, get kind of a crash course in social services, and things that I thought I knew were not the case. So I just learned a whole host of things, and I knew it was all God showing me he showed me the way to Catholic Charities for a very specific reason. So I'm very, very fortunate to be here.
And then I would love to go into your positions a little bit more. So what is the difference between, you said you were an accredited representative. Mm-hmm. So what's the difference between an accredited representative and a lawyer?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And it comes up often. Usually in my consultations, I always make correlations. So I always tell my clients that I am accredited. So I'm allowed to perform work like a immigration lawyer does. Our agency is currently recognized through the Department of Justice. This is a special program that we apply for as a nonprofit that allows us to do and practice immigration law. And then within that, we have our representatives like myself who go through the process and get all the training necessary to be able to provide legal representation to clients within our means. And so we are partially accredited representatives, which means we can only represent individuals amongst the government agency of USCIS, and we cannot attend court hearings like when it's immigration court. So we are limited on what we can represent individuals on. But this program was created so that nonprofit agencies like ourselves can provide low-cost immigration legal services to our community, to the most vulnerable, so that they can have that access. Because we know private immigration attorneys can be very expensive, and a lot of individuals can't afford to hire a private attorney. And so we are a secondary option for individuals to be able to still get services through our accreditation.
That's amazing. So how does the nonprofit, could you go, sorry, I'm going to say this like this. When it comes to the nonprofit status, what are the limitations? You said, so you can't be in court hearings, but what else, is that just basically the only difference then, or?
Yeah. So for being a partially accredited representative, I can file immigration applications and processes within our scope. So within the government agency of USCIS, which is the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. As a fully accredited rep, then I can then accompany individuals if they have a court hearing or are doing an asylum case. So it does broaden our spectrum of services if we were to become fully accredited. So it does open up more doors to do that, which is something that a lot of individuals in our community need access to, is that court representation, but we're just not quite there yet.
Right. Okay. And then so let's meld the two worlds together a little bit. If you guys could give me a brief answer on why it's important that immigration is covered in your services.
The dignity of the human person, which is tied to social teaching number 1. Cynthia has the background. She can speak to why, how it looked in the early days, but coming into it, I can say the reason it remains so important is purely because of the dignity and having avenues, having options for people and treating them like Cynthia's department does, with compassion and honor and love. And so that you said brief. That's how I would brief.
Go on. That's fine.
So there are other Catholic social teachings that speak to the importance of immigration and having, again, legal options for immigrants. I think of the second teaching, which is the call to family and participation. You cannot ask that someone participate in a community if they are not valued. Mm-hmm. So what we do, by an extension of these legal services, if you're treating someone humanely and you're seeing them as a soul, seeing them as created in God's image, you over time will be even directly or indirectly encouraging them to become part of the community. And the only way a community is going to get richer and it's going to be stronger is by having loving representatives walk with these individuals to show them their dignity so that they can ultimately participate better in their family life and in the community. And that's the whole point. That's subsidiarity at its finest. You teach people how to make decisions at the most local level. So if you want to change the world, if you have any desire in your heart to change the world, it's got to start with that individual, show them how important they are, and then teach them how to engage better in their sphere. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's very important that we understand that immigration law is very complex. It's not easy to navigate. And so early on, there was, and still is, there's a lot of immigration fraud that happens. So scammers that are trying to take advantage of these vulnerable communities by posing as attorneys or just somebody who has the ill intention to help them with applying for a status. And then they jeopardize their future for being able to have any immigration benefits. So the bishops and like a lot of different organizations plead to the Department of Justice to create some sort of avenue where the nonprofits could have access, and especially for our immigrant communities to have access to these low-cost immigration legal services, with the purpose of helping the most vulnerable. We do see the most vulnerable. I do believe that we see the individuals that maybe don't feel as comfortable going to a attorney who might have a very lovely and fancy office. They probably want to be going somewhere where, they may be going to church and they were referred to our services because they know that it's linked to their parish or we are within that same branch. So they're more trusting to come to us, and they see us just like them, right? We're able to walk, like Eddie said, alongside their journey and be able to get to know them, see how they're going to grow and prosper throughout their whole immigration process. We see individuals coming to us from early on stages where they don't have any legal status, and then we were able to obtain a work permit, and the security that just a simple work permit brings to these individuals is so impactful. And being able to, a lot of individuals get quoted thousands of dollars, and we don't even charge nearly close to that. So we're a third of what a private attorney charges for these services. So a lot of individuals who, are working low minimum paying jobs, it's something that they can afford, and it's a really nice benefit for them to be able to seek accessible, low cost immigration legal services. We've had conversations, we've done like public comments within our networks about, sometimes these fees are a mortgage payment, that they have to pay to immigration. And so if we are charging twice as that, or they're going to an immigration attorney and paying double what we're charging, these individuals don't have money to survive. And so the fact that we can provide a secondary option for them is beneficial. And then we have the same experience as immigration attorneys. We ensure that we stay up to date with any changes that are happening daily, sometimes hourly, but we are staying very well informed. We work with some very amazing immigration attorneys in our area that provide guidance and support to us and support the work that we do. So if we do get stuck on a client's situation, we know that we can reach out to these attorneys locally or even on a nationwide through our network, because we are affiliated with Clinic, who's also a clinic, their Catholic network, and we're able to connect with them and get resources on how to assist our community and help this individual case. So we have a lot of resources under our belts on top of the experience, and so it's great.
So I think what goes into that next is, you kind of mentioned earlier that it is a complex system and even changing day to day. So could you go into us, and let's just start at the very basic. What is a visa?
Yeah. So a visa is a document that's issued by a U.S. embassy that allows individuals to travel to the United States. It allows them to enter through a port of entry. So sometimes it's through air, through car. So they come to these main entries and they are seeking admission into the United States. Sometimes these permissions are done in advance and then it's given to them. So for example, like a tourist visa, they'll go to the U.S. embassy in their country and apply for that tourist visa to be able to come and enjoy tourism in the United States. So a lot of the times, even for those visas, individuals do have to show that they have like property, a job, that there's grounds for them or those ties back home that it's going to force them to come back, because they just want to ensure that they're not going to come to stay to the United States. So everybody does have specific requirements that they have to meet in order to get a visa, and there's a level of different types of visas for these individuals to come into the United States.
And then can just anyone get a visa then to the U.S. or to any country, I suppose?
Yeah, so anyone can apply for it. Again, there's special requirements that they have to go under that they follow. So not everybody will qualify for one. And there's very strenuous processes that they go through too. Again, showing those ties back home, that they're not just coming to stay with the intention to stay here in the United States. So it's a very lengthy process.
What about are there different types of visas? And I mean, I'm kind of leading the question there. I guess what I should say is, how many different types of visas are there? There's
a lot. So it does depend on the type of visa. There are, for example, a tourist visa only allows you to come to the United States for 6 months. It's the most amount of time that you're allowed to be in the U.S. If you overstay, so it expires today, starting today, you're going to start to accumulate what's known as unlawful presence, and that can make it harder for someone to get another visa in the future, or be able to have any legal status in the future. So it is important to know that the expiration date that you are given is different from when the actual visa was issued. So a lot of visas are issued for like a 10-year period, and it's important to understand that expiration date is not the date that you're allotted to stay in the United States. So when you enter, you show your visa, and what Customs and Border Patrol will do is they'll stamp that, and that'll give you the admission date until. So then they'll put on there, you have 6 months from today to be here in the United States legally, and so individuals tend to get that confused. They think that they see a 10-year visa and they're like, no, I'm allowed, I have my visa for 10 years. Well, no, the visa is valid for 10 years, but your stay is only for 6 months according to the stamp. So those are two different things. So that's one thing that they need to be on the lookout for.
And then what does it look like if someone wanted to come to the United States legally, what does that whole process look like? Could you give some examples of that? Yeah,
so there are several legal pathways that individuals can come to the United States. There's family immigration, there's employment, humanitarian protections such as asylum or refugee status, and then there are a few special programs that fall under that as well. Usually a person does need to have a petition approved first in order to be able to enter the United States, or either get a visa abroad so that they can apply inside the United States to get their status.
So what is the petition? What is that?
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah. So a petition falls under a family immigration process, and typically it can be like a U.S. citizen spouse petitioning for their wife and children outside of the country to come. And that U.S. petition is demonstrating that there's a relationship, proof of that relationship. So who is this person? Who are you petitioning for? If I'm petitioning for my husband who resides outside of the country, I need to show documentation that that's my husband. I'm the U.S. citizen. We're legally married. Here's the documentation and proof for it. And we're married in good faith. He didn't marry me with the purpose or intent to just gain an immigration benefit. So we have to convince, I always tell clients, we're going to talk about your love story. Let's show them that you are truly madly in love, and that, this is really for love and not just for the benefit of an immigration status. So usually that's the first step. Once that's approved, if they are abroad, then they have to attend what's known as a consular process. So they have to go to the U.S. Embassy to interview. And at that interview, the officer will deem again whether this is a true love story or if it's a fraudulent marriage that it's just this individual is just trying to get an immigration benefit. And then if they, pass everything, they have provisions under the laws that they have to follow also to make them eligible still. So they'll look at criminal record, they'll look at whether they've been here or not in the past. They'll check everything out, make sure the T's and I's are dotted. So they will go through that process, and if they are approved, then they'll be able to enter the U.S. lawfully. So every process is different.
Amazing. And so then after you get your petition or after you file for your visa out of the States, then do you just come through whatever port way that you'd like? So either air, or car.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can travel through boat to get in here or not, but
Train.
I'm sure. Yeah. Eventually you'll get your visa in your passport, and that is your admission into the United States. Usually it's a couple days. It could be within hours, sometimes a few days or weeks later, depending on how soon your family member wants to travel to the U.S. Once that is done, then they enter lawfully, which means they automatically enter as a green card holder. So there is one final step where they just have to request that green card be officially mailed out for them, and then they are a green card holder.
So I don't know, I might have already asked this, but what happens if their visa expires?
If their visa expires, they simply stay without any legal status. So they can leave. They could still leave the United States. There's just no guarantee that they'll be allowed to come back because they overstayed. And so a lot of the times officers will look at that and say, you overstayed. What was the reason? Depending on your reason, they may let you come back. But if they feel like you are coming with the intention to stay in the U.S., then they won't allow you in.
So what happens if someone doesn't come through the legal pathways?
Yeah, so at Catholic Charities, we do not turn people away because of how they entered. We can't fix every immigration situation, but we can give them accurate legal advice. So we work within our U.S. federal laws. And so there are some individuals and there are some options that allows individuals who entered unlawfully be able to have some legal status in the United States. A lot of individuals that enter without permission can still benefit from like a U visa, a VAWA, or some humanitarian programs. So there are still very limited options, but for some, those are the only options available to them within immigration laws.
Okay. And then if they leave the U.S., are they able to, so if they come in illegally, if they leave the U.S., what happens to them? Are they able to apply out of the U.S. and come back in, or is there any like processes that happen that would make it so they can't come back to the U.S.? What does that kind of look like?
Yeah, that's a very important question, and it's also a very specific question within our work that we do. We do have to learn about individuals' entries and exits and the history that they have of those entries and exits, because it does play a big role. So if they leave the United States after being here without permission, they can trigger sections of the law that bans them from the country. And depending on the length that they were here, they can be banned from the U.S. for 3 years, 10 years, or sometimes even permanently. So that's why it's very important that that clients come to a consultation, because in that consultation, we're going to gather all those facts and be able to determine if they're eligible for something. And that's what a lot of people don't understand, is how important it is to have a consultation with either an accredited rep or an immigration attorney, because if they don't do this and they file something and they have like the permanent bar, they're going to, get denied and rejected, and they spent all this money for nothing. And 2, they're now like pretty much waving their hand and saying like, I'm here and I don't have any legal status. And with the way things currently are with this new administration, there are, reasons for them to be ordered deported. And then those proceedings take place, and then they're, not able to stay or remain in the United States. So those are always very important things that we have to understand even before we can offer a contract for service.
And then I'm going to ask this question, and you can choose to answer it or not. But the question would be, so this is a very hot button issue in politics, and it has been for the last 50 years. So especially the verbiage that we use, I think when we go back to Catholic social teaching, it can really come to, is this dehumanizing language or humanizing language? And a lot of the times we talk about legal, illegal, like labels. So could you talk briefly, is there a way that someone could, or I guess, could you define the different terms maybe that we use in the U.S. To talk about immigration? Are there specific terms that you guys use in different stages of immigration, like someone in their filing, or that would either give them some status or partial? Is there such thing as partial status? Like, what does this look like? And could you kind of touch on the humanization of the words, the language that we're using.
Yeah, I think it's
take part of it, and then I'll take part of it.
I think it's very important to always treat everybody as a human. So we use the term either unlawful for an illegal entry. We don't refer to individuals as illegal or aliens. We refer to them as unlawful or currently here without no legal status, just because it doesn't define them. So I just will clarify that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that any subject that's a hot topic, you get labels where what happens with the labels is no one's going to seek to understand in any way, shape, or form what any given family has gone through.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is people will jump to one side or the other dramatically. So it's either, mass entry or mass exit. Like, no, I don't know if you read Father Tim's homily. It was in the Idaho Catholic Register. He said the Catholic way is both and. You need to find that space where I believe we operate, which is not going to go on these extremes, and it's going to be careful about the words you use, because when you use the proper context when you're describing these situations, I believe it invites others to understand what we actually do, what immigration attorneys do, what the clients are going through, what they're trying to do for their families, and not just go so black and white that no one's even willing to have a discussion about it. And instead, they might just, if I just say dignity, they're like, oh, that's great. What does that even mean? Okay, well, let's talk about what the church says about dignity, not just as it relates to immigration, every area of life. And you have to show that thread. We're not just talking about dignity in a vacuum, only about immigration. That is absolutely crucial. We're talking about every aspect of life. And we're not going to get into it right now necessarily, but this was a helpful exercise to show from a church's perspective, when we're talking about terms, to show Scripture, Catholic social teaching, encyclicals that respond to that same matter, and then lastly, statements that have been made from the Bishops' Conference. So if you take those things collectively, you start to get a pretty strong aerial view of a matter, and that's the only place where we're going to be able to have a discussion about this anyway, is to get the aerial picture. But if you're just looking at one aspect of it and you're labeling people in a way that dehumanizes them, you will never even get to the point where you can understand the legal system, the Department of Justice, and how you deal with issues strategically, not with a broad brushstroke.
I think that one of the things that Father Mosier said on my podcast with him is he said that the right to life is so important as like the primary right that we fight for in the U.S. because every right off of that is based on if someone has like dignity in just existing. And so I think immigration in a way parallels those two, and I think those are why those two specifically are so polarized in our political climate, because they so much depend on this idea of dignity of the human person and what makes a human person worthy, like valuable, right? So I think, again, when I'm thinking of immigration, I think that comes up often is, are we speaking with dignity? But I wasn't always like that either. I have to say, I kind of was like, oh yeah, whatever this news source is saying and that news source is saying, like, yeah, that sounds like reasonable, like what they're saying. But once you kind of get into it, I'm sure you both have seen this in different situations, when you hear someone's story or you realize that, like, again, I'm sure people have heard this in other podcasts, but my husband works in immigration, and so some people have like family petitions that take like 10 or 15 years. I'm like, can you imagine being separated from your spouse or your children for that long? Like, it's just very sad. And I think but what you said about it's not each polarization, it's not mass immigration or mass deportation, right? It has to be somewhere in between so that we all thrive, right? So,
and I think a lot of people don't even know this. The USCCB came out with a document that was revised as of January of this year. I invite everyone to look at it. Catholic elements of immigration reform. No one is saying that we do not need reform. The only way you're going to get to even better dignity or better recognition of dignity is through reform. And we've been talking about it probably for decades that we need reform, but the USCCB outlined how many elements here? I think they had 6 key elements to what that would look like. I'll just briefly tell you.
Absolutely.
Enforcement efforts should be targeted, proportional, and humane. Humanitarian protections and due process should be ensured. I mean, this is all common sense, and you can see this all ties back to encyclicals and to Scripture. Longtime residents should have an earned pathway to citizenship. Family unity should remain a cornerstone of the U.S. system. Crucial. We talk about broken families leading to all these issues in the world, and yet in the same breath we might end up saying, yeah, they should be separated in certain circumstances. Legal pathways should be expanded, reliable, and efficient. So inefficient. Cynthia has talked about it with her department many times, how not just the complexity of something, but it becomes a maze. There's a difference between something that's complex and a maze, okay, where you feel like it's potentially being gaslit. Like, where do I go now? I want to help this family. They came to us wanting to become citizens, get a work authorization. We want to make it easy. And then the last thing is the root causes of forced migration should be addressed. So you can't just have a reactive state like we do with so many matters in this day and age. Rather than asking what started, like why would there be so many families that are trying to get here, we just say, why are they here? Or let's just solve it overnight, flip a switch. There is brokenness in other countries. And this is what the church is able to view that people don't get. We can't just get this by being an American. You have to get this from the vantage point of the global understanding of brokenness, which ties to sin. I won't get into that. But when you see all these families that are looking for a better existence and you can't understand that, you can't get in their shoes in any way, there's no way that this would be solved. So that's what I love about this. The root causes of forced migration need to be addressed. Yeah. And even if that sounds lofty, it's true. It's true. That's the only way we can solve any issue. If you look at a family issue, what is the root cause? Why is this kid running away or misbehaving? We always, on a local level, we're thinking about how can we solve this? What is causing it, rather than just reacting and throwing out the baby with the bathwater.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One of the things that there was 2 points that you had said when you were reading that I wanted to kind of ask some questions on. The first one is due process. You said that they should have due process. So currently, is there due process in this? And then what kind of cases, like we talk about immigration law, and I know that you guys aren't necessarily immigration lawyers,
sure,
but when they practice immigration law, there's kind of like 2 courts that lawyers usually fit in. It's criminal or civil. So what does that look like? Where does immigration fall on that? And what kind of due process does that look like?
So there's due process currently, especially within special programs such as like the refugee resettlement programs, asylum, temporary protected status, to sometimes visas for victims of trafficking or abused youth. The reality is, though, that they are so backlogged that even though with the due process, it takes years for some of these individuals to get any of these protected statuses. So it is, I think, in this particular element, reform to the U.S. asylum system in particular should not raise what is already a high bar of relief, given the potential threat to human life if refoulement were to occur.
That's a fun word.
Yeah. So meanwhile, like third country resettlement is durable and mutually beneficial solution for refugees who cannot safely return to their country of origin. There are immigration processes that have to go through that due process. So it's very important that we still have those, but I think re-looking at, how many visas are we allocating for these programs? Mm-hmm. If there's somebody who's been a victim of a crime and they are applying for a U visa, on October 1st of every year, the government releases 10,000 visas. There's currently more than 90,000 people waiting for a U visa. So if I have a client apply today, they're looking at a 10 plus year wait before they may even get that protected status. So during those next 10 years, what are they going to do, right? How are they going to protect themselves from falling into the hands of immigration? Yes, they can do stay out of trouble, avoid going out or associating with anyone that might get you into trouble, but then you're hiding, right? You're hiding under the shadows. You're not feeling like you're a part of this community, which can be detrimental to their mental health. So then you have all these other factors that kind of fall into it simply because the due process is something that's taking so long.
I'm just going to stop you there for a second. And it also kind of perpetuates the kind of climate we have where it's like, I've heard I would say more older people say this, but they're always like, well, they just don't assimilate. Like, why aren't they assimilating? Like, if they assimilated, I wouldn't mind that they're here. If they learned, English or whatever, I wouldn't mind that they're here. I just want to be able to know who my neighbors, They kind of have this talk, but it's like, well, if you don't have, and I'm not saying this for everyone, right? I'm not saying for every situation, but it's like, well, if they didn't have to feel like they were hiding or thought that they were going to get in trouble, maybe they would feel more comfortable assimilating. You know what I mean?
And it all stems from this. Like, if you have more efficient systems, and then more people would actually feel secure sooner. And then if the community rallied around them and helped them assimilate. So putting it fully on the non-citizen or citizen, new citizen to assimilate, that misses a part of the picture too. Because if I care so much about my community and I care about love of neighbor, there should be some effort for the community to step up and help with programs that would help these folks assimilate. Because again, until you understand what they came from, it's just so easy to just say, why don't you just handle it? You should be doing this, that, or the other. Yeah. And labeling constantly and vilifying is really what it is, so that people do not respect. If you just label or vilify the non-citizen constantly, you are truly forgetting where we all came from at some point and forgetting that there is a shared humanity. Doesn't mean there's an easy solution, but the rhetoric needs to chill. just slightly. And again, this is a problem well beyond immigration. It relates to so many issues that in this media era, if you just throw out keywords, it's almost as if that's your argument. That's not an argument, throwing out a few keywords or labeling people in a very dehumanizing way. That doesn't get to the root of it. And these are complex issues, and we admit that. We understand that. But by partnering with the Department of Justice, they're actually trying to help. That's the key.
Yeah.
Like, if you do not see that as a person as a soul in front of you, you're not going to even care to understand the complexities of the system that are going to help them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
and we have going back to the U visa. This visa was created by Congress to reward. Yeah.
Could you pause? What is the U visa?
Yeah. So the U visa is for individuals who have been a victim of a crime. Essentially, they are being rewarded for cooperating with law enforcement in helping them with the investigation. So we go back, we typed assimilation. A lot of these individuals are coming from countries where they know that if they call the police because they've been a victim of something, chances are the police is not going to come and help them. So if it's like a domestic violence incident, right? There's no criminal justice systems in their home countries. So they come to the United States, they still fall victim to, maybe they came here with their perpetrator, they're still falling victim to whatever domestic violence. And they finally decide, here, justice is going to be taken seriously, and you have the right to call the police. That is why we have these public servants in our community, to help our community when they are in need. And so we teach, young children, you call 911, if there's an emergency. So these kiddos are coming home, they're relaying that information of all these things they're learning at home. Call 911, mom, right? Well, what does 911 do? 911 is going to help you because of what my dad did, or what my mom is doing to you, or because of this incident that happened. So then these individuals call 911, and they're more inclined to report if they know that there's going to be a benefit for them. But a lot of people are scared to report these incidents because they fear that instead of taking their report, they're going to be arrested and taken in, or that there's not going to be any protection for them. So they created the U visa so that people would feel more inclined to report these crimes that they were falling victim to, with the hope of promoting public safety and being able to show that we will support everybody regardless of legal status. So the U visa is one of those protected programs and protections that individuals can apply for to feel secure and safe. But it's also very hard when they're at their most vulnerable and they don't feel like they're being protected, right? Because they have to wait so many years so that they can get this legal status.
Right. I want to go into all the services you guys go into, but before I ask that, this will be my last question, then we can kind of go into your services that you offer. What is the difference? Language is really important. So are all the people coming to the United States considered immigrants? Are all of them trying to stay? And what are the different titles for each one? Because I think oftentimes we hear legal or illegal, and we use immigrant, but not. From what I understand, it doesn't seem like everyone is actually an immigrant. Not everyone is coming to stay. Oh,
you mean like immigrant versus migrant versus refugee?
Yeah, and just kind of like where do different people live in the immigration world? Like, what are their different statuses? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I naturally fall for immigrants, whether they are just migrating into the United States to stay. But I treat everybody as an immigrant, regardless of, if they're still a refugee. I still call them an immigrant because they're coming to the United States to stay. There are some individuals who are just coming simply to enjoy the United States and enjoy our tourism and see the beautiful that the U.S. has to offer. And so I still treat them as immigrants that are coming. I know there's legally specific definitions for them, but that's usually what I refer to.
Well, I guess my question had to come with work visas, because work visas don't necessarily mean, they just mean that you're authorized to
work here in the United States.
So does that mean that those people are necessarily coming to stay, or is that just like sometimes they do stay, or what does that look like?
Well, I think that everybody is coming with the intention. Well, if you're here on a work visa, you're coming with an intention to stay, because you have to stay for a temporary period of time to work. Mm-hmm. So they're here for sometimes 6 months, 9 months out of the year to work, and then their visa again has an expiration date and they have to depart and go back to their home country. So a lot of these visas even have special regulations that they have to follow, or specific instructions that they have to follow. So we can have a student visa. So they come in on to learn here in the United States to further their knowledge, get a degree in whatever they are studying. And one of the conditions imposed is as soon as they get their degree or graduate, they are to return back home within a certain amount of time and implement those skills that they learned here back in their home country. And they have to show proof that they, went back and put those skills to work. There are some individuals who end up staying because maybe they fell in love and they found, their forever home here. And so they're forced to stay, or that student who got their master's in music, found a really great job here, and that job now wants to sponsor them so that they can stay here and make a new life here. So there are a lot of individuals that never came with the intention of staying, but opportunities fell in their lap that allowed them to remain here.
Amazing. Okay, so we have a very long list of services that you guys provide. So I'm going to just ask in rapid fire fashion. If I say what it is, then you guys can give us a little definition of what that service might be.
Absolutely.
Or who might be able to apply or have benefits for that. So, all right. The first one, general consulting.
We meet with clients, we review their history, and we give them legal advice about their options. So this is the first must-have step for us.
All right, adjustment of status.
This is for applying for a green card from within the United States.
Okay, sorry, we have to stop here for a second. What's the difference between a visa and a green card?
So a visa is a temporary stay to the United States, and a green card is permanent residency, seeking permanent residency in the United States. So being able to reside in the United States permanently.
Is a permanent, like a green card or permanent residency, is that the same as being a citizen?
No. So as a lawful permanent resident, you still risk being put into deportation proceedings. You can travel outside of the country, but you cannot be out of the country for more than 6 months in a year. But as a U.S. citizen, that's why we encourage a lot of individuals to apply for citizenship, is because then they're able to travel wherever they want and can come and go. And then they're able to vote. Who doesn't want to vote?
Absolutely. Okay. Family visa petitions.
Family visa petitions is helping a U.S. citizen or permanent resident petition for a family member.
Okay, so permanent residents can also apply for their family to come. And when they do that, are they also applying for them to come with permanent residency? Or
correct. Yeah. So as a lawful permanent resident, say I'm a lawful permanent resident and I want to petition for a family member, it can only be immediate relatives. So it can only be my spouse or my children who are minors. And then that's why we encourage individuals to become citizens, because then it opens the door for them to be able to petition for their parents. They're still their spouse and their children, but now they can do adult children. I can petition for my brother and my sister if they're out of the country. So it opens up who they can petition for more.
Wow. Consular processing.
So this is the process of completing immigration steps through a U.S. embassy abroad. So again, kind of going back to starting with that family petition, and then usually the beneficiary, so the person benefiting, is out of the country, not in the United States.
And then what about domestic violence cases, or VAWA?
Yeah, VAWA. So VAWA is an acronym for the Violence Against Women's Act. This act, I think, was imposed by Congress in 94, early 90s. And it's a special law that allows victims of domestic violence to apply for protection and a path to a green card without needing the abusive family member.
And then what about fee waivers?
So fee waivers can help clients apply to have their USCIS filing fees waived. So essentially, if they are below the poverty guidelines, or maybe suffering extreme hardship, or receiving public assistance, they may be able to apply for a fee waiver to not have to pay those fees.
Legal permanent resident card renewal.
Yeah, so we help individuals renew or replace their green card. So if it's about to expire, usually they are valid for 10 years. So once 6 months before that expiration date, we encourage individuals to renew it.
I didn't know that green cards actually expired. So that's
yeah. Some early green cards were never set to expire. So we will see these very what's the word, fossils, very old green cards that don't have expiration dates. And so the newer ones, I don't know how recent, but I want to say within the last 20 years, they started issuing expiration dates. So people would renew them.
Okay, affidavit of support. An affidavit of support is a financial document that's required in most family immigration cases to show a sponsor can support the immigrant. So this is part of an adjustment of status, part of a consular process. Basically, what you're showing is that you, as the intending immigrant, are not going to rely on mean
tested public benefits to support yourself. And so the point is that I, as a U.S. citizen, I am going to financially support my spouse, while they immigrate to the United States. They're not going to depend on any public assistance.
T and U visas.
So these are humanitarian visas for victims of trafficking. So that's the T visa, and victims of certain crimes, such as the U visa. They're designed to protect people who have suffered serious harm and have cooperated with law enforcement.
Travel document.
Some individuals need permission for certain immigrants to travel outside of the U.S. and return safely. This typically applies to refugees who need to travel back to their home country for whatever reason. So a lot of these individuals don't have a passport from their home country, so they have to request a travel document that allows them to travel out.
Employment authorization.
This is known as work permit, so it allows individuals to legally be able to work.
Citizen and naturalization.
These are it's the same process, but it helps a lawful permanent resident apply to become a U.S. citizen, or sometimes it's deriving citizenship or acquiring citizenship. So there are some factors where, if your parent was a U.S. citizen before you turned 18 and you resided and were in custody of that parent, you may be able to get, as a child, right? You might have an easy way to get citizenship.
Wow. Again, another thing I did. Deferred action for childhood arrivals, or DACA.
Yeah.
I think everyone's heard of DACA.
DACA.
I don't know if anyone knows what DACA really is. So
this is for people who came to the United States as children. There are specific requirements that they have to meet in order to be eligible for it, but it does give them a temporary protection from deportation and a work permit. So it doesn't necessarily give them any legal status, but it allows them to remain in the United States and not be at risk of being deported.
Awesome. And then VAWA request. Is that how you say it?
FOIA.
FOIA.
Yeah. FOIA request. It's the acronym is Freedom of Information's Act. And this is a request that we help clients request either their immigration records or from the government. Typically, we do this if they have like a criminal record and they just, it was 30 plus years ago. I don't even remember the details of it. We can do like an FBI FOIA and request we'll do fingerprinting and get those requests in so that we can kind of get their whole criminal background. Sometimes it's required if they've had any contact with immigration or have been detained. It's like their rap sheet.
Gotcha. Okay. Refugee adjustment of status and family petition.
This is to help refugees apply for their green card. So when refugees enter the United States as a refugee, after 1 year, they are eligible to apply for a green card. And then they can also petition for qualifying family members when they enter.
Okay, and then the last is a case-by-case basis, other types of assistance on case-by-case basis.
So this is when a situation falls outside of these categories, we will review it as a team and we'll see how we can help them. Sometimes these individuals are just needing a translation, right? They have a birth certificate and they just need this translation for whatever process they need it for. So they'll come to us and we'll translate it for them and we'll get that submitted so that they have that. Sometimes it's just requesting a police report. Some things that might be easy for us to do or navigate is not necessarily easy for them to navigate. So we help them navigate that. Even sometimes just a simple resource. They might need food and shelter information or resources, and so we're able to just provide that for them. So there are some very unique cases that we see. We talk about it as a team and we determine whether it's within our scope also to be able to serve them, and if it's not, we always provide a resource. So whether it's a referral to an immigration attorney that we know can help them, then we'll do that.
That's interesting. Do you guys get them connected with translators? Because everyone, it's not just that we are getting immigrants from one country. We're getting immigrants from all over. So
yeah.
Do you guys have a group that you work with for translators for all different languages?
Yeah, we currently have a list of translators that we provide our community with. Sometimes they already are coming with a translator to our offices. So we just ask, that they provide a translator or that the translator comes with them. So we do have that.
Awesome. That's amazing. Okay. And so the one thing that I did notice on your website, you had VAWA and DACA. They had their own little sections. Mm-hmm. So do you guys work with those two a lot? And then could you kind of go into why you highlighted those two programs specifically on your website?
Yeah. So unfortunately, domestic violence is very common within immigrant families, and many victims do feel trapped because of their immigration status, or that's like the main thing that is used in the power and control wheel to, used against them, that if you report this, I'm going to call the police, or I'm just going to call ICE, and they're going to come and pick you up. So a lot of these individuals are threatened with that. So we like to remind them that we offer free consultations, when they have been a victim. And then I think that when they see something relatable, that it's a service or that they can get assistance, they're more willing to come and get services. I can't express how many times I've seen or just have seen clients in my chair that say, I'm going to refer you to someone. Mm. Like that word of mouth is also like our number one source of referral, because they're saying, they don't want to reach out because I just saw this yesterday. They're like, I sent someone to you. I know you can't confirm or deny, right? But have you heard? And I'm like, well, I can't tell you that, but they don't want to call because they're scared, and I'm like, no, tell them, that we offer, everything's confidential, that we, all of our services are low cost, and then just share your experience. Like, what did you experience today? And she was just like, I experienced warmth. I was welcomed. And I'm like, exactly. So those are the things you want to express to them so that they feel comfortable calling us. And sure enough, a couple hours later, they were calling to schedule that appointment. So it's really important that at the end of the day, we remember that we are also human, and, being able to see that our clients are spreading their experience is what's impacting them to keep referring and having them come in. So when they see those things on our website that, we do offer this service, it makes them more inclined to come in and receive the services. And then they're able to learn more about these processes. These processes over the last few years have been really talked about, so that the community becomes more aware of it. And it's on purpose, because we do want individuals to know that if they are falling victim to a crime, that they have the right, regardless of their legal status, to make a report, to file a report for it. So it is important that we let our community know that this is a service, and sometimes they're looking for that specifically, and then they know that we offer it. DACA is just, it's one of the programs that has unfortunately been a lot thrown around a lot with previous and current administrations. So a lot of DACA's dreamers are looking for agencies that provide services specifically to them. And so it's almost like just as a reminder that even though it is a hot topic right now, we are still serving you as a DACA recipient. Like, we can still do an analysis on your case, renew your work permit, or answer any questions that you have about your current status. So that's one of the reasons why. And then we have to remember that a lot of DACAs were brought to the United States as children. They've grown up here. This is home. They've built their lives here. So we want to help them renew their protection every 2 years. And it's just like that gentle reminder of like, hey, if you have it, let's get you renewed. Like, we can still help with this.
Yeah, I think that the thing about DACA is, and again, I want to point back to something you said about fraud, because I think I've swung like way one way and then way the other way, and then there was a report that came out and it was like, oh, well, there actually was some fraud that happened in these immigration services. But the one thing that gets me is DACA is so sad that people are attacking this one, because I think about like a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old that came over that has no idea what's going on in there. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, up until like really teenage years, those kids are so innocent because they're like, I'm just going where I'm like told to go.
Yeah.
Like they don't really have any independence. And so I think it makes it extra sad to think of like the children that came here as small children, you know, I mean, and children in when they're older too, like 18-year-old, you want to make sure that you can still go to a place where you can find a job and you're not persecuted for something or whatnot, you know, because most of the time that's usually what's happening. It's either you need better economic situation or you have some kind of persecution or religious like lots of persecution actually, but that's just, let me just put it on there. But yeah, I think DACA is a program that I've come to learn that it's not as bad as it seems, but again, I don't know anything about internal stuff in the.
Well, and with DACAs, we, like you said, you know, a lot of these infants came when they were 2, 3, very, very young ages. They couldn't have consented, right? That they were wanting to come to the United States. Their families migrated to the United States for whatever reason that they needed to. And a lot of these children didn't realize they didn't have any legal status until they were probably in high school, right? And so, and it was time to fill out FAFSA, to apply for colleges, to want to get a job. I mean, I remember being of age, right, to get a job and the eagerness behind it to wanting to work. And even though my parents expressed, you have no reason to work, like focus on your studies and then you can think about a job. But that drive of like, I want to make my own money, like I want to provide for myself, like I want to take a little load off of you guys. And like, you know, them saying like, okay, you know, fly little birdie, go get a job. And going to get a job and getting that job, but knowing that there are individuals who were at my age at that time going to apply for a job and then asking, you know, for a social security number, asking for proof that they can lawfully work. You have to think like at age 16, 17, you have no idea what that means. Like you don't know. And then these individuals we hear these stories. They go home, hey mom, can I see my social security card so that I can apply for this job? You know, I swear for like the last 5 years, my mom had my birth certificate and my social security card, you know. Right. They are the ones who house those things. And then the parents having like, okay, now we have to have this conversation. Like you don't have a social security number. And like the reality of like learning that they don't have legal status. And this whole time growing up, they thought, wait, I'm not from here? Like I knew I wasn't born here, but what do you mean? Like, what do you mean I don't have this document that everybody has? So the harsh reality was hitting these families. And I think DACA is a great program for these individuals who are still going to to school, furthering their education. A lot of these individuals are sometimes doctors, they're nurses, they're in our police officers, you know, they're contributing to our community, they're being great citizens, and they have this protection, and it's beautiful that they have that, but it's unfortunate that that's where it stops sometimes for them, you know. And so I think it's a great program that could benefit a lot of people, and it did benefit so many people, and I know a lot of people who were so very thankful for that and still are.
I just have a few more questions before we wrap up, but the one I wanted to ask you, Eddie, was when it comes to Catholic Charities, one of the things she talked about was warmth and feeling welcome. So how have you, stepping into this new role, tried to make sure that when someone walks into Idaho Catholic Charities, they get that? Because it's not just immigration, but you have a whole line of services that you guys provide. And I think one of the things you said earlier is this idea of the boots on the ground and seeing the people and like working with the people. How are you helping them? How are you training your staff to help be the hands and feet of Christ?
I think one thing is we do these lunch and learn sessions where we educate about Catholic social teaching, there was something about salvation history that I did, and through all of the lessons, the hope is to get everyone to understand that their work matters a whole heck of a lot, and their ability to put personal things aside and be present means more than they realize. In other words, it's not always easy to be present with another human, and you don't know what their needs are at that moment, right? But they're looking to you to, in some cases, be the stability that they've never had. And so I think whether it's a counselor, social worker, case manager, immigration legal representative, if they bring that warmth and they have the Catholic social teaching somewhere in their mind, thinking about the person, that this is not just a transaction. It's going to be a relational connection. And once again, I talk about it a lot. If that relational connection is made, then there is a greater chance of that person then spreading that light into their community. I will say it until I die, because it is true. If you believe that that person should be in despair, they will be in despair. If you believe that they should have some hope and that there is light, they're going to see that in the actual employee, and they're going to feed off of that energy.
Absolutely.
And if they lose hope, that what is there? So we try to, I don't know if that answers your question.
Absolutely. Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
I like what you say about if you give hope, then they receive hope, right? It's so true. I don't know if you've ever walked into, I'll use the idea of like a doctor's office, right? Yeah. I had with my last baby that I had a midwife group, and so there's a couple of midwives, and one was always like, oh, it's nothing's a big deal, like, you're gonna be fine, this is gonna be great. Yeah. And the other one would always be like, oh my goodness, you need to come in like 2 days. I had I went over 41 weeks, and so the other one was like, you need to come in, like, we need you to start doing things like now. And the other one's like, oh, you'll be fine. Like, and it's so true. Like, when you leave the office and you're like, maybe wait, am I doing the right thing? Like, is there something else I could be doing? And it kind of just does spiral you. So I see that very clearly in that experience, but I can see how it would apply to basically anything that someone is really kind of struggling with when they have a need that needs to be met. So.
Yeah, I shared this at our gala a few weeks ago, and I've shared it with staff many times, but there was a social science study that determined that the average person will influence 10,000 people over their lifetime. Okay? Wow. So from a Christian worldview, you say influence, it's going to go one way or another. You're going to influence someone towards hope when you interact with them, or towards despair. I mean, yes, there's probably a middle ground in there, but the point is, when you're speaking with someone, is it negative or is it positive?
Right.
Does it bring light or does it bring darkness? Does their judgment get clouded after they've met with you, or is there clarity? So when we talk to each other, we're trying to educate each other about, I'm learning about immigration weekly and social service work. That enables me, when I meet anyone, to hopefully bring more clarity to that interaction and hopefully help them, I guess, refine. That's what we all do to each other. We're trying to refine each other, make each other better, and and grow in the faith and grow in the services that we offer. So.
Okay, and then just to wrap up, I have 2 questions left. So the first one is, what are some challenging aspects of your job? And then the second one is, what are the rewarding aspects of your job?
You can go first.
So I have a few. When I think about the challenges, I think the top one would be the limited legal pathways. So this is one of the hardest parts, is knowing that not everyone has an option under current immigration laws. And sometimes you meet wonderful families who have lived here for many, many, many years. And even though they are working hard and contributing to our society and to our communities, they may not have a legal avenue available to them right now. And so being the bearer of bad news is like very heavy sometimes, and so that then falls with the emotional weight of client stories that we have to carry. I always have been told that, people can naturally just speak to me and divulge things and just express themselves, and so I used to hear it a lot, and now I see it because sometimes I'm like, dang, some clients just really open up to to me. And I love it. It's one of the things that I do appreciate about my job. But a lot of these individuals are coming to us because they've experienced some sort of trauma, some sort of violence or separation from their family, and then so many years of uncertainty. Hearing these stories every day can be very emotionally heavy, and sometimes wishing you could do more for these individuals. And so it can be very hard. And then you really make, like, I always make a relationship with my clients in the sense of, like, we see them grow, we see their success, right? So we are able to relate sometimes. And it's just such a beautiful thing to be there alongside with them, to see that process for them. And then the next one would be like how long processes are taking. So a lot of cases can take anywhere from months to years. And so clients can get very frustrated, very desperate, scared when they don't hear anything from the government. So we have like a lot of individuals, waiting for U visas. I have individuals since 2017 that are currently still waiting for a U visa. And just one that recently called me and said, my dad is really sick. He's back in Peru. Can I go visit him? Like, can I go? And then the reality of like, no, don't leave. Like, you've been waiting almost 10 years. Like, we are so close to the end. Like, if you leave, like, yes, there's an option, but now, like, it's going to throw you off track with the whole process. There's going to be things we have to do and modify. It is possible, but like, we don't really want to do that because, 10 years. And so a lot of these individuals, feel that pressure and feel like, I haven't even seen my father. She's like, in 30 years that I've been here. And what if this is the last time I can see him, and it's like, and then that going back to the emotional toll, like, puts on us, for that. So, always being able to try to stay informed and being able to give our clients the right appropriate information so that they know, like, it's not me who doesn't want you. I want you to go. Like, I want you to see your father, but like the law, right? Like, these due processes are in place for a reason. And then the high demand and limited resources. We do have, here in Idaho, we know that there is a very limited amount of immigration attorneys that can help individuals and accredited representatives. I think we are like one of 4 accredited agencies in Idaho that can serve. And currently, I believe we are the only one that is serving, continues to serve. So the other 3 agencies are currently like not taking new clients. And so that's the reason why we're the only ones with taking on new clients. So we do try to do our best to serve as many people as possible. But it can be very overwhelming at the end of the day.
Yeah. What about the aspects that are rewarding?
Rewarding, okay. So things that are very rewarding is just being able to help families find stability and secure safety. Sometimes, when individuals finally get their visa or get their green card or citizenship, you can see how life-changing that is for them. You can see families reuniting, or even just a survivor of domestic violence, like seeing their growth, right? Over time, the light in their eyes is coming back. Like, they finally feel like they can stick up for themselves, that they don't need to depend on their perpetrator to keep up with them. So they're able to finally be their own individual person. And then being able to continue watching our clients grow and succeed. We go from being so fearful to being unsure of this whole process to over time, they start to build their confidence. They start to find good jobs, right? They now have a legal status that they feel like they can go get a better paying job. They get that courage to finally buy a home. Becoming part of their communities, like fully immersing themselves in our communities without feeling like they're going to be reprimanded or judged, right, for doing what they had to do. So it is very amazing to witness that transformation that they go through. And then my most favorite is just being a part of this whole immigration journey. Knowing that immigration cases are not quick, it's not like an overnight thing. I love being able to walk alongside my clients. I've been doing this work for over 10 years now. And so I get to celebrate these milestones with them, even just as simple as getting a work permit, being able to say, like, I can legally work. Welcoming family members, like bringing family members from their home countries, and then the final step of achieving U.S. citizenship. So you become like a part of that journey. It can be a small part of their story, but I know that, the encouraging words that I'm giving them or the scolding that I'm doing is being helpful, and that I was able to influence that is what is rewarding.
Amazing.
I think the most challenging part, especially related to this conversation, is the people that cannot be helped. And that applies, across the agency. Anyone that they don't have the proper paperwork, or they didn't come prepared, or we don't have the resources to help them. That's always very challenging. But the most rewarding part is when we can help them, and then they go on to, their lives are in some cases transformed dramatically, and it changes generations, and it leads to us sharing in our impact report these mission moments, and on Salt and Light Radio, mission moments. Sometimes the stories seem, I don't know, you don't capture, it's so hard to capture the depth of what is actually happening. But I'm telling you, it is happening, and it will continue to happen. So when you look at the number of cases they represent, the number of immigration consultations that are happening on a weekly basis, these lives are going to be changed, even if it leads to impatience, even if it takes 12 years, 20 years, it's still a generational thing. Mm-hmm. And as Catholics, we're looking at the long game, 2,000 years and counting. We want our clients to see that as well. Easy for me to say, but we have to have that hope for them, that even if it takes you several decades, don't give up, persevere. We are here for you as much as we can be. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Okay, so if someone's listening to this, they know someone, they want to refer to you, or they see it and they think they can have some help, or that they need some help, where do they find you? How can they get connected? And what can we do as Catholics in the Diocese of Boise to help support your mission?
Yeah, so we have our website at ccidaho.org. It's a beautiful website. You can get help or give help there. And so I encourage you to visit us there. You can also call our direct line, which is 208-345-6031. And there's a nice little, phone guide on there that you can select what services you're looking for, but we also have a receptionist who can direct your call to the correct person too.
As far as what Catholics can do, I say this all the time, they can pray for our agency. They can pray for all agencies that do this type of work. They can take maybe 10, 20 minutes to go to that document I mentioned about immigration reform and better understand what the church does propose. And in relation to that, also, you can go to the USCCB and learn about where the church lands on this issue, and how, like I said earlier, the both and, how do you...
And the mic is falling over.
And the mic is falling over. To take your time to educate yourself, or to even call us, and we can help people understand why we do what we do, how we do it, and ultimately how it's going to help the community, not hinder the community. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And with the mic, we will wrap up. I will go ahead and try to link that immigration reform document in the description. And then other than that, we just want to thank you so much for both of you coming in, giving us some time, and teaching us more about immigration and Catholic social teaching.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Desert Wanderers. If you liked it, give us a thumbs up as well as subscribe down below. We're produced by Salt and Light Radio, so you can find us on social platforms at Salt and Light Radio or Desert Wanderers Podcast. We produce episodes every week and we launch them for you on Wednesdays. So make sure to tune in for next week's episode and we'll see you then.